New week and a new Arizona Fall League check-in here on the call-up. I'm Aram Layton. He's Jack McMullen. We got some blue-chip prospects to talk about and some under-the-radar arms as well, some under-the-radar bats also, and a little bit of context as to what the Arizona Fall League numbers, I think look like this year in comparison to other years, and maybe just a bit more background on the ways to approach coming away with takeaways, I guess, to this whole thing. That's definitely where we want to start, Jack, because I keep seeing people get really excited about offensive output, and understandably so. I mean, there's a lot of things to be pumped about with these high-level prospects out there, but I think it's very important to look at each performance in a vacuum and see, hey, is this guy doing some of the things that we wanted to see him improve upon, and that's contributing to this slash line? And also, a 930 OPS from a guy that was in Double-A may not be as impressive as a 780 OPS from an 18-year-old, a guy who just turned 18,
right,
low-A this past year. So I think context and nuance is probably as important as ever when it comes to the AFL.
No doubt. I'm just thinking about guys that are performing right now that are performing beyond even their wildest expectations when they do get to the big leagues. Like, hey, what are they doing that is above their 100th percentile outcome? And I'm not talking about guys that are like, cut and dry. Obviously, you're having an out-of-body experience. Josue Briceno has 7 homers in 13 games. So he has a 1458 OPS. I'm not talking about guys like that. I'm talking about a guy like a Samy Natera who's hitting 410 with a 1016 OPS right now. Samy Natera's a good ball player. Is he an 1,000 OPS guy at any level? No, he's not. Like, he's a speed and defense guy that's going to provide a little bit of offensive, value there in his spot in the lineup.
And he played the entire year in Double-A, so he's a little bit more prepared for most of the arms that they're going to see out there.
Exactly. I'm looking at the leaders, just leaders in the Arizona Fall League in OPS right now. Briceno far and away because he's been awesome. Otto Kemp. Okay, Phillies. That guy's 25 years old, and he was in Double-A, Triple-A this year.
Yeah.
Kemp Alderman is a college bat. Nico Cavadas is a big leaguer. Tyrone Lorenzo, that is really encouraging. Juan Baez is really encouraging. And then you get to, I'm literally at number 7 in the Arizona Fall League in OPS. Colson Montgomery, Triple-A. Moises Ballesteros, Triple-A. Thomas Sajazi, big leagues. Trey Morgan, we know how advanced that guy is as a hitter. All these guys that we're talking about are upper level hitters. It's not, this low A prospect is really mashing, with the exception of a Josue Briceno and a Tyrone Lorenzo.
No, it's a great point. And I think for the context of that too, with those guys, it's okay, well, is there anything that they can do that is worth looking at? Absolutely. But you got to look at it case by case here. So you brought up an Otto Kemp. Otto Kemp destroyed fastballs this season. Was utterly incredible against fastballs. But he struggled against everything else, right? He hit 319 with a 1041 OPS against fastballs. And then against most, other secondaries, I think he hit sliders pretty well too, but pretty much everything else, he had a lot of trouble. So how is he hitting breaking stuff? Some of this production that we're seeing, is he staying back on a slower curveball and driving it the other way? I know it's tough because there's not a lot of access. I know they're broadcasting more games this year, which is great, but there's not a lot of access to both video and data. And it's really hard to know the details of what's going on. So that makes it even tougher. And I think that's the compounding issue of the AFL is you have inflated numbers and then you have deflated in terms of access. And now, you have those two working against each other, or working with each other, I should say, to really create, I think, very excited and maybe some overzealous takeaways, which what else can a fan do? What else can somebody do that's just trying to get what they can get information wise? So that's why I thought it would be great to just start this episode with a little bit of context to maybe try to make this easier. We don't have a WRC plus for the AFL, right? We don't have things that typically help us put numbers and performances into context. And it's still kind of hard to do that. So that's why I feel like, personally, how we go about it, and I think if you're looking at a player that's in your dynasty league, or a player that you want to invest in cards wise, or whatever it may be, I would go in with the question before you dive into the player's numbers of, what did he need to do? What was the team probably hoping to see him improve upon out here? And then is he doing that in tandem with his impressive production,
Well,
or is something that we were concerned about continuing to be highlighted. For example, you know how much we love Xavier Isaac,
right.
but Xavier Isaac started to swing and miss a ton when he got to Double A. Xavier Isaac's been productive. He's got a 9-something OPS, I think 936, but he's still swinging and missing too much. So
Yep.
I come away from that 936 actually more concerned than encouraged, because I know that a 20-year-old Xavier Isaac can mash out there, and I know he's going to run into homers. But I was also hoping that there'd be a little bit more contact within the zone, and there hasn't been. So you might just look at the slash line and say, oh, well, Isaac's still doing his thing, but I'm actually a little bit discouraged by what we've seen from Xavier Isaac so far this year. And you won't get the end zone contact rates, but at least you can see the strikeouts there.
Yeah. So the Arizona Fall League needs to do one of two things. I would prefer if they did both of these things, but they need to do at least one of the two. They either need to up the camera quality on these broadcasts, and you need to be able to get a crisp view, like a AAA quality view of the center field camera and the high home camera, or, and I think this is the easier one, you need to play all of these games in ballparks that are fitted with Hawkeye and TrackMan. Like all of these games need to be tracked by StatCast.
Yep.
And the fact that there is a StatCast schedule where it's like, oh, one game in 2 days is a StatCast game. So that's where you can see the exit velocities and, you can see the induced vert and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. All these complexes have Hawkeye and TrackMan. It's just
that's
a
what I was
matter
going to
of
say.
turning it on and staffing. It's not like, oh, Peoria doesn't have it. No, Peoria has it because you need to have it for Big League Spring. Turn it on. Like, all of these games should be StatCast games. And I'm not saying that, you can take everything away from StatCast. I'm saying watch the games, confirm your thoughts with StatCast, and that can tell a better story than a batting average in the Arizona Fall League.
Well, I think the StatCast could give you enough in terms of, like, if you're looking at some specific things, that you want to come away with, and that's the frustrating part of it all. And so, I even like, trying to compare these performances to, like, I mean, Josue Briceno is doing, and we're going to talk about him, just this out of body experience, like you said. There's a certain tipping point where it's like, holy crap! But actually, it's also something that we were waiting to see Briceno do, right? Elevate more consistently. And now he's doing it and we're seeing the results. So sometimes you don't need the data as much, right? Like, it could just be that cut and dry of, well, he hit 2 home runs and he had a 50% ground ball rate in the regular season. Now he's got 7 home runs in like 2 weeks. So clearly he's elevating more,
right?
But like, it's very rarely going to be that easy to be able to like look at Exhibit A and then, Exhibit B and be able to compare and contrast there, because it's not usually that stark.
So
but
I don't even think it's the hitting thing that I need it for. Like, I do think you need it for hitters. I think that would really help to help quantify and all that. But like, Andrew Painter is throwing games on a non-StatCast, setting right now. Like, why are we doing this? One of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball, we don't know how hard he's throwing. The general public, at least, does not know how hard he's throwing. You have to rely on the pocket radar behind home plate, or like the stalker behind home plate, and then
when the stadium guns were wrong, when they didn't have
stadium guns were wrong. So
when they didn't have Hawkeye set up, the stadium guns, we checked it. Even when they did have it set up, where we were comparing, you had your iPad up, we're sitting there, and it was reading like either 2 miles per hour. I think it was mostly down. It was like down a tick and a half.
Mesa was a cold gun. Like, guys were hitting 96 and it was saying 93.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's wild. And the thought that came to my mind as you were talking about all this, and this is the unfortunate reality of it, and it's mostly because, I mean, I get it. They're not making they're losing money in the Arizona Fall League. The Arizona Fall League is for the teams, not for the fans. And it should be more for the fans. But unfortunately, and I think that I'm seeing them do it incrementally. We're taking a baby step towards it being more for the fans each year here.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that not kind of what it boils down to for you? Is that the AFL really, it's for the scouts, it's for the teams, it's for the players and the organizations, and it's not really being designed for the fans yet. And they have these special events and things too. Like, I barely knew about the triple header at Goodyear Park. I only knew about it because I was like, oh, well, I'm going to go cover that. But like, they don't really market it well. Like, it was really fun. You had 3 7-inning games in a beautiful ballpark and beautiful day. And you're going to get to see all these different teams and players go. And I mean, no one knew about it. And spring training is so popular out there. You know that. Like, it is buzzing around the whole city and multiple towns, multiple cities. It's buzzing everywhere you go. You see baseball stuff. I'm not saying the AFL is going to match that, but I do think with a little bit of effort, it could be very well supported.
It's an amazing product. You never get the opportunity to see guys of this quality that up close and personal and in that concentrated of a space. You have these 6 teams all separated by max 48 minutes. Mesa to Surprise is what,
Yeah.
48, 50 minutes? That's unheard of. This is high school baseball all over again, but you have, 24 top 100 prospects out there balling right now. So like it is a great product that I feel like you can help push the data a little bit more and make it more accessible. And you make a nice point.
Video.
Like it is for the scouts, it's for the teams. I'm not going to say there are more Twitter scouts than ever before, but there are more fans that are curious about Arizona Fall League performance than ever before.
Yeah.
So let's cater to them. It's just a matter of accessibility. The numbers are being recorded. Just make them public. Like
Yeah.
Baseball Savant was a game changer in Major League Baseball. Savant at AAA was a game changer. Savant in the Florida State League is a game changer. Let's get it for high A, let's get it for double A, and let's get it for the Arizona Fall League because you are playing in all of these ballparks that have that technology at the ready. Just use it. And it is a Major League Baseball product. I understand that you're losing some money. How much is it going to cost you to staff one extra person to run Hawkeye? Like, come on.
And the other thing that's funny too is like you got MLB Network. They do the Fall Stars game, which is awesome. I don't know what the numbers and the ratings are on that, but just I think it's funny that you're investing all this into spring breakout and great idea, love it. But then you have something that's pretty similar to it right in front of you, already organized, already set up, and not really much focus on that side of things. Instead, you'd rather show like I don't even know what movie for the 5,000, like Bull Durham on MLB Network for the 8,000th time in the 7 p.m.
Or
slot.
the one with what's his name? Summer Catch with Frankie.
Oh God,
you know what I'm talking about?
So bad. Yes, it's so bad. But numbers wise here. So the AFL OPS last year, average AFL OPS. So I was shocked at actually how low this was. So I thought the pitching would be decent this year. I was clearly very wrong about that, but I also think that there's a lot of really good hitters here, like more than usual.
Yeah.
Average AFL OPS last year was 767 with a 2-1 with a 26% strikeout rate. This year, hitters are slashing 276, 379, 448 with a 23% strikeout rate. So, I mean, that's an OPS comfortably north of 800. What's it's like 860,
827
or 820. Geez, great math there. 827.
Thank you. Great math.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to the iPhone calculator.
But yeah, 827, like that's quite high. The strikeout rate being lower. I think the difference is I had some confirmation bias on the higher end arms. There's a big drop off this year. There's some bad arms in there that just get racked. And I don't like calling anybody bad, but we're not naming anybody. And there's a lot of arms out there. There are some players out there that I think the AFL is being used a little bit too, I think is like okay, let's see if this guy has anything. If not, we'll probably know what to do with him in the offseason too. And that's the difference with some of these arms. I think some teams like just didn't have arms that they really wanted to send to put more bullets on. So they just threw some filler out there too. So I think that's part of the reason why, because you have some good top end arms, but it just drops off pretty significantly there. But yeah, I mean, to go from a 767 OPS to an 820 something, like that's a big difference. And a 2.6% change in strikeout rate's pretty significant as well. Obviously, we got more time to go in the season, and these guys might get a little bit more tired after already playing a full year. And most of these hitters had actually played most of their games this year compared to pitchers who are kind of making up for lost time, shaking off some rust. So that is probably part of this thing. And I think it'll even out a bit, but just for reference here, like, the average hitter has an OPS comfortably over 800. So that's why I think you got to look at more of the specific nuanced things, which kind of leads us into Leo DeVries, right? Which, Leo DeVries, if we had WRC plus for the AFL, he'd have like a 93 WRC plus, right? Because DeVries, his OPS is in the high 700s. But if you watch Leo DeVries, and if you also really consider the fact that he is coming off of injury and had just turned 18 years old and played only at the low A level as a 17-year-old, it's pretty remarkable that he has been, a productive hitter. I know it's slightly below league average here, but he has been a productive hitter as a newly turned 18-year-old off of injury in this Arizona Fall League where every pitcher he faces, every single one, there will not be one pitcher that is within, I think, a year of his age. So like that is the crazy part about it. I think he's been incredibly impressive. And the biggest part about it too is we're working with such small samples here that, if you're just sorting by overall numbers, you might not get the whole story, right? Vries was coming off of a shoulder strain and he hadn't played since the middle of what, August? And so makes his first appearance since then in the middle of October. So almost 2 months off. There's going to be some rust there, right? And through the first 3 games, Vries showed that rust where he was 2 for 13 with 7 strikeouts. But then since then, not a huge sample, but you're seeing a guy that definitely shook off the rust and was starting to look really comfortable. In the 5 subsequent games, he's 5 for 15, 4 walks, 3 Ks, and he's spraying the ball all over the field, and he stole 2 bags. And that was the Vries we saw. Like right when we got there was right as he was shaking that off and getting going. And I mean, he just looks anything but an 18-year-old. I think he fits right in with, I think, a lot of these 20, 21, 22-year-old prospects out here. And I've just been so impressed with the last handful of games for a guy that also, when you see the way he finished the year, I think it really helps support the narrative too, right? Closes the year out with the final 40 games at low A, slashing 275, 400, 563 with 11 home runs. So like he was really seeing things click. And then the injury cuts the season short. So to come back and do what he's doing, you got to be really encouraged if you're a Padres fan.
It's funny that the get your feet wet period was 3 days. Like I would understand if it was a week and a half or 2 weeks, and then he finished strong with a back 2 weeks in the Arizona Fall League, but it took him 3 games to get his feet back under him after missing a couple months. Like that means that guy is cut from a different cloth. There are very few people that can be, okay, yeah, I saw a couple go through, let's do this. Games seemed super simple to him when we saw him in a couple of games out there. I know you got a couple more in-person looks than I did, but it just seemed like the game was working slower on him than it would work on any 18-year-old when you're out there and you're seeing pitching, like fastballs that hard. That's the big thing. It's like, okay, Leo Vries was not necessarily seeing mid-90s every single time he went to the ballpark in low A or any time previously in his baseball life. This is the first time that he's seeing guys that have been on a professional baseball weight regimen for 5 years. And those guys are always going to have more intimidating fastballs. And it only took him 3 days to get acclimated.
No, great point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Average fastball velocity in the regular season for him was 92.4. And average fastball velocity that he's seen in the Arizona Fall League has, well, actually, if I combine both, it's even higher. But average 4-seam velocity was 92.4. Average 4-seam velocity in the AFL is for him has been 93.5. And then if you combine, 4-seam and 2-seam, I think it's even more of a discrepancy. So, I mean, that's a full tick, right? Like that's a lot. That's a big difference for a young hitter who's coming off of injury, and he's all over it, man. Like velocity has been no problem for him. And I really was, the thing that I love too is like sometimes you see these younger hitters, we talk about at the complex all the time, right? Like the guys that are just so much more advanced from an approach standpoint, and they're just patient and they take their walks, and it kind of allows them to exploit, I think, at the DSL and complex where their numbers are just really, really high, but there's some underlying whiff concerns and things like that. Like I didn't have that concern with Vries, but clearly he was more advanced from an approach standpoint than, most of his, I would say, peers at those levels. But now seeing him even in the AFL just continue to maintain a patient approach and continue to, I think, really control his ABs well. It just seems like he's definitely that guy that, like you said, is cut from a different cloth and just is very advanced. And that's why I am worried, like, how fast are they going to push these guys? I was reading a Kevin Acey piece from the San Diego Union Tribune, and he's the guy, I think, on the Padres beat. This is, in his words, the shortstop gap, because they were analyzing free agency and everything like that going into
they're not
this
bringing
year.
him back. Yeah, they're not going to
and it makes a lot of sense to bring him back on a 1 year. But this is the paragraph here that I looked at and I'm like, come on. And I quote, "There is talk that Vries and Salas could be in the big leagues at some point in 2025. They do hedge and say, he does hedge and say it seems like a long shot, but there should be no talk about that. There should be zero talk about that. That is outrageous." So that side of things is pretty funny. But that has me thinking now with a good AFL and the way he continues to play and the way he finishes. I mean, we're going to see this cat in Double A. I just hope they don't assign him straight to Double A.
I would assume he opens the year in Fort Wayne next year, and he may be there for 2 months, and then he goes to San Antonio. I would hope that they let him get his feet back under him because he missed several months of this season. If he spent the entirety of the year in Lake Elsinore, spent the entirety of the year healthy, spent 5 of the 6 months in Lake Elsinore, and then spent 2-3 weeks in Fort Wayne, I would not have my jaw on the floor if they assigned him to San Antonio. I would think that it's crazy, but
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh yeah, classic Preller. Here we go.
Yeah, nothing surprises me anymore.
But if he were to skip high A entirely and it's like, oh, he's in double with a chance to make the show. No, don't do that to him.
Please don't do that. Please.
Yeah.
He's heading on a really nice track here. And it's been awesome to watch, but I'm excited. I think he's going to keep building on this. And the last thing on him is much more productive from the right side during the regular season. He's been doing all his damage from the left side since he's come back. So it's good to see that left-handed swing catching up too and closing the gap.
So can I ask you a Padre question that just totally spurred my mind? They're looking at the shortstop gap.
Mm-hmm.
If they're willing to push to Vries like that, would they have any interest in putting Merrill back on the infield?
I was thinking about that. Like, it's so tough because he's become such a good center fielder.
But he could be a good big league shortstop.
And then who plays center?
I don't know. You sign one? Like, I feel like center is a cheaper sign than
shortstop. I would use that as a bargaining tactic. And like if you're making a trade too or something like that, where it's like, hey, we don't need to. We'll move our all-world center fielder to shortstop and he can play it there too. But to answer your question, the glove had come along so far, and we'd been gushing about that going into the year before the outfield thing was really had legs, that he has gotten himself to a point where he's a good shortstop.
Yeah.
I think he's already a better center fielder, but he could go there and be, I think a slightly above average big league shortstop.
Cheapest option to bring a vet in could be Merrill to short, Tatis to center, sign a corner outfielder.
Yeah, that could be really fun.
That could be fun.
Or you just grab a Harrison Bader and call it a day.
Or you just grab like a generic shortstop like Jose Iglesias. See what happens there.
I don't know if he can throw across the diamond anymore.
Man, but, I mean, he played some third base. I feel decent about his ability. Yeah, not if he backhands a ball. I don't feel good.
but no, to your point, like it does give them an option. I would love like Merrill's just come along so nicely. Just leave him, please. But you never know with this team.
Is welcomed.
Yeah, and their financial constraints, they might be a little desperate to do anything. Speaking of financial constraints, Nick Kurtz of the Oakland now. We don't call them Oakland anymore now, right?
They're just the A's now.
They're just the A's,
and they didn't want to be known as the Sacramento A's or the Oakland A's when they're not playing in Oakland. They're just the A's. They're the Athletics until they get to Vegas.
So the A's. Nick Kurtz missed time at the end of the year, which was unfortunate because he looked like he was about to have like I wouldn't say like Cam Smith level like explosion, but he was making a mockery of low A, and they quickly, pushed him up to middle, which made a lot of sense. Like he could skip over high A after what he did in low. And, right after a handful of games, unfortunately, goes down with an injury. And that seems to be kind of the theme with Kurtz. That's why I'm actually really encouraged by the fact that he's already back. And instead of like, hey, we're worried about his body here, let's give him the offseason. So no, let's get him right back in there and get him going. And I'm sure he wants to be out there as well. So Kurtz getting assigned to Mesa, I mean, only helps the offensive side of things out here. He did go 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts in his first game back. So he might be cooked. But no, I mean, this is another fun wrinkle. You have 2 draftees now in this league. You have Caglione, and now you have Nick Kurtz. I wonder if we're going to start to see more of that, moving forward in the next couple of years of drafted college guys, bats that you want to push kind of quickly, and ending up playing some games in the AFL here. But I don't have much else to add. I'm just excited that Kurtz is back that quickly because, you never know what the deal is with minor league injuries. It's always going to be undisclosed or very vague or whatever it may be. And clearly it was more of just a minor thing for Kurtz, who played his last game on the 24th of August and is already back here now on the 26th of October, and they're ready for him to play a couple weeks of games.
Yeah, so I do think that we are going to see more college bats get assigned to the Arizona Fall League. I think they probably fit into the mold of a Nick Kurtz a little bit more than a Jack Caglione, where Caglione missed no time. He hit the ground running right away. In terms of playing time, like I know the numbers were not Kurtz level numbers when he was in Quad Cities, but he got to Quad Cities pretty darn quickly after signing. Bazzana got to Lake County very quickly after signing. Weatherholt got to Palm Beach. I'm thinking of guys like a Kurtz, even a Christian Moore that got hurt at the end of the year. If Moore was healthy, he would make sense to go to the Arizona Fall League.
Yeah.
If Braden Montgomery, at this point, October 28th, was like, I feel good. I would love to see some pitching right now. I
Make
feel
a
like
lot of sense for him to be there.
it,
Yeah.
it would make a lot of sense. So I feel like it's those kind of guys that you'd like to see be a rocket ship through the minor leagues. And I know that I'm just going to call them Oakland until they get to Vegas, because might be out of protest, I guess. But Oakland would love to see Nick Kurtz get to the show in 2025, and I think relatively early.
No
Boston
doubt.
would love to see Braden Montgomery get to the show at some point in 2025. We'll see if that's in the cards.
There just might not be room.
Right. Anaheim would love to see Christian Moore break camp with them next year. So if you have the opportunity to get them a couple more game reps in their draft year, you might as well do it with how advanced college hitting has become.
No doubt about it. A different profile, a different player, but a guy that I'm very fascinated to see how the progression is handled now with the performance we've seen in the AFL has to be Josue Briceno.
Mm-hmm.
And Tigers prospect, we've talked about him. I mean, he's the talk of the AFL right now. And I mean, for good reason. He's outpacing everybody in everything offensively. The thing that's interesting is this is a player that actually will significantly shift, I think, his perspective with his AFL performance, considering the fact that he played 40 games in low A due to a knee injury. We talked about that and, him coming back and everything. But also the fact that, I mean, the biggest weight to his, I think, ascension when it comes to climbing levels would have presumably been the glove. And I don't know what the plan is, but we've talked about how I think he should just play first base, right? Like PCL issue with his knee, like 6'4" guy that already was questionable defensively. The bat is clearly exciting and projectable, and we're seeing that. I think with what he's doing between playing first base now, the offense we're seeing there, I think clearly the knee was impacting his ability to elevate and stay off of that front foot because he was drifting quite heavily, I think, in low A. I mean, it's a stark difference in batted ball. I mean, the average launch angle on hard hit baseballs was negative. It was negative 0.4 during the regular season. I know it was only 40 games, but I think that says a lot about, where he was at either physically and also just controlling that lower half. And obviously it's up to like 12, 13 degrees in the smaller Arizona Fall League sample, but it's enough of a sample where I think you can really look at it because 2 home runs in 45 games, if you include the postseason, versus 7 home runs in just a handful of games. Now, what do we have? Like 14 from him so far? So,
yeah, like 13.
So, I mean, that's definitely a clear change here. His approach is relatively advanced. He's produced above average contact rates, especially for a player of his hitter of his archetype. I wonder if you just keep this guy at first now. He's definitely going to go straight to high A next year. They could push him quicker if he's not catching. And it does change the outlook in terms of ETA and obviously as a player and everything, but I kind of like it, to be honest.
Yeah. So 13 games, Briceno slashing 438, 500, 958, 1458 OPS. He's got 2 triples too. The only thing that he's like really not pacing the league in is doubles. He has yet to hit a double, but he's got 2 triples and 7 homers, driven in 15. Otto Kemp is driven in 16. So he's got that too. And Josue Briceno has not attempted a stolen base. If that guy attempts a stolen base, we're going to throw a parade. Did you get there for in-person BP at all?
No, not for Briceno, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I still I dream about that. West Michigan / Erie next year has the chance to be as exciting a minor league lineup as we've gotten in a half decade.
Yeah.
With Clark, McGonigal, Lorenzo, Briceno. The Red Sox are doing this trio thing, and Christian Campbell clearly made it a quartet where you've got Campbell, Teal, Meyer, and Anthony all kind of hanging out. The Tigers have their version of that now. It's not to that degree because all those guys came with first-round pedigree or minor league player of the year pedigree in Boston. The Tigers, though, they have 2 guys with that first-round pedigree in Clark and McGonigal. they have a guy that obviously was the headliner of that Flaherty return in Lorenzo, and they've got a guy that is a hulking presence.
Yeah.
Their fuse should be pretty short on Spencer Torkelson at this point. And what I think Briceno is doing right now is maybe eliminating the need for a stopgap or a bridge in between Torkelson and him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm interested just because they have so many of these left-handed hitters too throughout the system. I mean, I don't see them ever trading from the farm. Obviously, Scott Harris is of the belief of building this sustainable waves of talent type of thing. But I mean, it's going to be a fun conversation of like which one of these left-handed bats fits into the long-term outlook. Because if I still think he's going to be a nice player, but let's say Jace Young's starting to struggle as well, and for a year plus now as well, like. All of a sudden Briceno's in double and he's performing there, let's say. And that becomes a conversation there where you just have another left-handed bat that could fill first base, DH, whatever it may be. It just gives them layers and different options. And also you talk about the intrigue of that, West Michigan Erie ball club. You'd also have like a Jaden Ham out there who was fantastic on the mound. So you have some pitching intrigue as well. This Tigers farm system is really come together. And I think, with a breakout of Briceno, which it seems like he's very much on the track to do that this coming season. I mean, the EVs had always been there, right? We talked about the bat to ball and the approach. It just had been getting it in the air. Now that he's doing that, it might be that like delayed breakout. And if he has a monster year next year with the other pieces that they have and the pieces that they have at the top too, there's just a lot of fun bats. They might not all have a ton of defensive value, and that's the interesting wrinkle in this thing. Right. Thank goodness for Clark there then, right? But no one's going to complain about having a lot of bats.
I feel like McGonigal can play a good second, but then
you
run into the problem of Jace Young and Keith and McGonigal, and it's like, okay, one of you has to learn how to play shortstop, and it's probably McGonigal that you have to point to. Don't forget about Peyton Graham either. Peyton Graham factors into that lineup as well.
They've had him playing all over the place in the AFL.
I was floored at what the frame looked like on Peyton Graham. It really hasn't changed since Oklahoma. I thought that this guy was a clear-cut, put on some strength candidate, and it's very skin and bone, and like it. Yeah, I feel bad. Like
I don't know. Maybe they're hoping bench utility type, but he's got a hit, and it hasn't looked good when I saw him out there either. Unfortunately. Another guy who did look good, Juan Baez, Brewers, shocker. Another Brewers lower level guy that you can probably push pretty aggressively, and they're going to. He had a nice year in low A. Nothing crazy, 106 WRC plus, but it just has been the at bats, and I got to see more and more of him where like he's one of those guys that you got to see probably 10, 15 ABs, and you start to really appreciate what he does in the box. Like rarely going to swing and miss within the zone. I drew a sample where. And you can check out the notes in the episode description on the AFL. But I drew a sample where like 56 pitch swings within the zone. I think he's only swung and missed 5 times since he's been in the AFL. The bat lives in the zone forever. He spoils, though. What I love is he spoils tough pitches too. And then we always talk about the guys that are very contact oriented can tend to be swing happy and start to expand more. He does a good job of mitigating that and keeping the chase rate at a respectable rate. The question just boils down to how much power is in there. But I think he started to flash that a little bit to the pull side. So it's just another bat in the Brewer system. He just turned 19 years old. That I don't know if there's a ton of value defensively, probably more of that second base profile, but he just gets to everything. And I think we're seeing it again here in the AFL. A younger guy that just looks like way too comfortable out there. He's hitting 389. He's 14 for 36 with 8 walks and 9 Ks.
Yeah, and it's such a quiet 14 for 36 too. Do you have the extra base numbers in front of you?
Yeah, 2 homers, a triple, and 2 doubles.
Yeah, I mean, those are, hey, let's spread it out here. And the homers, are they environmentally impacted, do you think, or did he really get them?
I think one he really got, the other was environmentally impacted for sure.
But we're talking about a guy that is putting the ball all around the ballpark.
You mentioned Kendry Rojas too, one of the best arms out there.
There you go. And you mentioned the bat living in the zone forever. If this guy is not swinging and missing, and he has the ability to put 2 out, even if one of them was environmentally aided, this is a serious threat, man. And the Brewers are doing this again. And it's not like the Red Sox. It's not like the Tigers where they have all of their top bats concentrated into one affiliate. It's like they have
They're
guys at
spread out.
every single level. Tyler Black was the 27th man for the entire year this year. And then you go to Double A and you've got guys that, have a ton of intrigue. And then you go to High A and you've got guys that have intrigue. And then you go to the DSL and you've got Jesus Mate there. Like there is so much to look forward to as a Milwaukee Brewers fan. And there's a ton to look forward to in 2025 at the big league level too.
Yeah, I just, I think the tough part is like you see a system like that, and clearly there is no doubting their ability to reload. But at what point and they want to keep reloading? It's the waves of talent thing, even more than the Tigers. Tigers will spend, like in certain spots, they'll clearly spend.
Yeah.
The Brewers are never really going to spend. And what's frustrating about that is, they clearly can regenerate prospects and talent. They crush IFA. They do as well they get the Venezuelan prospects, I think, as much as anybody. Yeah. But they also crush it everywhere. And they draft extremely well. They do all these things. I would love to just see them bundle some prospects together and go trade for a controllable piece.
Yeah.
Because it's so I know the fans are probably tired of just hearing like, oh yeah, I know that we have a lot of young talent to look forward to, but we're always going to come up a little bit short because we don't have that, that the same payroll equity as some of these other teams. I was going to say you don't have that superstar impact, but you do. You got Choreo there now, right? And you have some of these prospects turning into stars. Jefferson Caro's on his way, which I'm still fascinated to see how that all works with William Contreras. Like they have the high impact guys too, but they do so well even on these $20, $30, $40,000 IFA guys. Like you could package together a Juan Baez and some other pieces and start to try to get some controllable talent. I just wish they would do a little of both.
So noted Brewer, not hater. Like, I don't think hater is the right word, and hater with a T, not hater with a D, because I know that that's a curse word in Milwaukee right now too. But I will say, with how much we don't know about this free agent class, I feel like the Brewers could do a little free agent spending here, like 2-year deals for a couple starting pitchers. Don't forget that they had Brandon Woodruff and they have him ready to go in 2025. Yeah. So they get Woodruff back, they get Peralta back. Why can't they find a 2-year deal for a Yusei Kikuchi? Why can't they find a 2-year deal for a Nick Pivetta? I feel like the Brewers could do that and let more of these young bats matriculate and get through and get to the big leagues and help out in Ortiz and a Terang and a Choreo and a Freeland.
These are so cheap. Yeah, they're going to be so cheap for so long, right? Like,
yeah. So my thing is like, why do you need to package a bunch of prospects here if the free agent price is low? Now, if the free agent price is high,
them spending.
What?
So I had no faith in them spending, but you bring up the point. Like they did take advantage. It didn't fully work, but they did take advantage of a soft market for Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah.
And eventually just swooped in and grabbed him. No way they were one of the first to call on Rhys Hoskins.
No.
I think they finally saw the price go down and down and say, oh, we can get him on a 1 year with a mutual? Sure.
But like who's going to pony up and pay Yusei Kikuchi because he looked good with the Houston Astros? Like I think Kikuchi is going to be dirt cheap. I don't think they're in the freed market, but I think they're in the market for guys that are like, who's going to pay Pivetta? Nobody. We all have TV issues. The Brewers don't. Brewers are pulling really well attendance wise. Like, I'll take a 2-year deal for a Yusei Kikuchi.
I hope this is the one instance we'll see them do that, because again, you got to look at the ball club and all the pre-arb guys you have all over because of the system that you've been able to build and sustainably build and pick your spots here to go for a couple players. So I would love that. But next player is a guy that might be in the big league equation this year as well for the Giants, who will spend, but they clearly are keen on this guy being a part of the plans sooner rather than later. Bryce Eldridge. I don't want to talk too much because we talked about it on the last episode, right? Or not last episode, but the last AFL episode. Did we discuss like not rushing Bryce Eldridge? I'm trying to remember if that was discussed or not. But
yeah, I think we said the term baby giraffe 5-6 times.
Yeah. So I just think they need to slow it a little bit. But I wanted to check back in because he has started to swing it better. And, it was more of a, hey, don't rush this guy conversation. I do still want to have the conversation of this dude just turned 20 years old.
Yeah.
Had an unbelievable year and now is starting to settle in the AFL. I still see him rushed. And like, it just seems like the velocity has overwhelmed him a little bit. You know what's bizarre though? The average fastball velocity that he has seen in the AFL has just been higher than I think everybody else in the AFL. I don't know why, how, whatever. Just because a lot of these guys are playing every other day. There's a little bit of luck of the draw too of who you're seeing.
Yeah.
But the average fastball velocity he saw during the season was 92.5 or 92.6. What's interesting is in the AFL, the average four seam velocity that he has seen this year, and it's only 88 four seamers, right? 94. So it is kind of wild how that works, right? Where it is a small sample, so it can get skewed. I think where you get a couple extra ABs against Luis May or whatever, it probably bumps it up. But I thought that was pretty crazy that he's had where we were comparing to most of the guys I've seen here, the average fastball velocity has been a little bit lower than that. So, I mean, 94 is high, and it's a tick and a half higher than what he's been seeing. And I think he's getting some guys that are just throwing sharper stuff in general too. And it just seems to be that like he has looked a little overwhelmed. So over the last few games, seeing him settle in a little bit more has been nice. He hit a home run pull side, then he hit a home run backside, and now this more rushed version of him is still able to spray the ball a bit more all over the field, which is nice to see. Where he's, even if it's getting deep on him, it's a line drive the other way instead of a flare. And I think we're seeing him just get more comfortable. The last 4 contests, 2 hits and a homer, and 2 hits, a homer and a double. 1 for 4 the next game, then 2 for 4 with a home run, then 2 for 4 with a double and a walk. So, I mean, after really, it was 1 for 4 with a single, best case scenario, and I think he had 1 extra base hit entering October 17th. In those 4 games since, he has 4 extra base hits. So definitely starting to settle in, definitely starting to cut the whiff down a little bit. And that's nice to see because I think this is a good learning opportunity for him against some of the more advanced arms getting mixed in there. And a lot of left on left that he has seen as well, which I think has been good for him also, because this is a guy that you want to be an everyday hitter, right? This is not a platoon guy. You want to see him in the lineup every day. And he's been better against lefties.
Right. And in essence, like, what is the point in him being out in the Arizona Fall League if he's not going to get challenged? And he's been getting challenged with velo, and like this is just another opportunity for him to see hard shit, and he's going to get to the big leagues and he's going to see 94.5. What average four seamer in the big leagues is 94.3.
Something like, I think 94.3,
94.3 or 94.4. Like, that's the problem for Eldridge. That was the clearly identifiable problem for Bryce Eldridge. So if you have another month for Eldridge to have an opportunity to see 94 plus, then like just do that, because you clearly have these big league aspirations for him. So I feel like for some reason a 20-year-old being out here is providing an organization with a lot of clarity when it comes to what they're going to do with him next year. And it sucks. Like, I think he should open the year in AAA. I think he should be there for a while. But I mean, if they are encouraged by what the back 2 weeks look like against 94 plus, they may be inclined to just like show him pretty soon.
Yeah, which is what I was a little worried about. I think he should get a couple months in AAA personally, but we'll see how that goes. Pitching side, 2 arms that I've actually been impressed by, and it's nice to look at some arms now. Shocker, the Astros have an under the radar guy. And I think we talked about him in the preview. It's just like a guy that I think had some intrigue, missed most of the year. What's it going to look like? Alex Santos. I feel like this guy could still be a starter, and I think they're going to try to use him as a starter. But Santos, still just 22 years old, missed a majority of the season with I don't know what, because they don't tell us. But he only threw through May 7th, and then that was it. So this is the first time we'd seen him in 5 months. And I mean, he looks, 1, healthy, but 2, looks like a pitcher, man. Like the stuff is legit. So the fastball, now that it's sitting he's averaging 95 so far. And it's first of all, let's go numbers. 8 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, 14 Ks. He has a slider and a cutter, and they're distinctly different, but the slider is really gross. He'll also mix in a curveball that I think is a great, kind of taste breaker pitch. But the fastball characteristics are good. So now at 95, 96, plays above average. That slider is a plus pitch. So I already feel confident that from what I've seen with Santos, definitely has the floor of, this setup type, or at least like, MLB reliever. Like I think he has a floor of MLB reliever. But I'm seeing an Arsenal now and seeing him get stretched out again. He went 3 1/3 last time out, allowed 1 earned run, struck out 4, where he's mixing and he's got this feel to pitch. I'm like, okay, this is fun to watch. And the Astros are so good from a developmental standpoint. He's got the four-seamer with above average ride. He's got a sinker that he'll mix in every once in a while off of that. Then he's got the slider that's plus, and he commands the heck out of, by the way. So far in the AFL, he's thrown 44 sliders, 31 of them for strikes. And then he has, the cutter. So the fact that he can kind of mix and match, and he'll mix in a changeup occasionally, it's not good. I think he needs to bang it. But I mean, you got 4 pitches here, really 5 if you include the sinker, and the ability to throw strikes. I think this is either a guy that can be, a swingman type, or in shorter spurts could actually be a higher leverage arm. I really like what I've seen, especially with that slider.
So a lot of swingmen in Major League Baseball are not swingmen in the minor leagues, but Alex Santos has been a swingman in the minor leagues. Just on paper, it kind of seems weird how the Astros have used Alex Santos, because it seemed like he lacked a direction in terms of how the Astros wanted to use him until really this year. First year after he was second round pick out of high school in 2020, 7 starts, 5 appearances out of the pen. Next year, 14 starts, 9 appearances out of the pen. Next year in high A, 12 starts, 13 appearances out of the pen. And then this year, 5 of his 6 appearances were starts in affiliated ball. So it's weird that you have a second round pick here that I will say has a career 6 ERA in the minor leagues at this point, is 5.5, 6 walks per 9. Also, the record is funny too. He went 0-11 in low A in 2022. He's got a career minor league record of 5-25. You want to talk about you want to talk about demoralizing there. And these guys don't have the opportunity to pitch through the 5th inning to get wins. So it's like you got to get them out of the bullpen at the lower levels. But even then, it's just, you can never look at that column again. I may never look at minor league wins and losses again unless you're Drew Thorpe and you're 11-1. That's funny. But dude, I mean, he hasn't been good statistically. And I feel like some of that could be because he had no idea what he was supposed to be for the Houston Astros. And now it seems like they're willing to develop him as a starting pitcher. 2 of his 3 appearances in the AFL have come right away to start games. I would like to see them have an idea of how they want him to pitch and then deviate based on performance instead of we'll see what you do today.
Yeah. Well, you know what's nuts too, though, is the game, and I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason to it. The game he came in as a piggyback, or I think it was as a piggyback. 3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 6 Ks. It's his best outing. He followed that up with a start that was quite good too, with a 3 1/3, 1 run, 1 walk, 4 Ks. But what was also fascinating is he threw 58 pitches in that start and averaged 94 with the fastball. In the piggyback, he threw 50 pitches and averaged 96 with his fastball. So I don't know if there's anything to draw from that. What's also pretty interesting is that he had some unique velo fluctuations, not that direct where it was every time he was at the bullpen, he was throwing harder, and when he was starting, he was throwing softer. It was just random as well. But in 2023, I think there's part of the reason for the inconsistency. There's starts where he averaged 92 with the fastball. There's starts where he averaged 91.7. And then late in the season, he had starts in 2023 where he was averaging 95. So velo fluctuations are kind of interesting with him. And that's something to just monitor here. And I think that's part of the reason why they might not totally know what to do with him. But from an Arsenal perspective, and clearly he's throwing more strikes now too. It's a small sample, but definitely throwing more strikes. Last 6 1/3, only 2 walks. I think they want to and should try to see, and he's a 2nd round pick, if you can get a little bit more out of him. He's got the arsenal, I think, to be a starter. Yep. And if not, then you can fall back on a guy that could be a good reliever and a multi-inning one at that. But regardless, I've come away with Alex, understanding why he was a 2nd round pick. If you look at the numbers, you'd be like, oh shoot, this guy, this might have been a whiff. Might not be 2nd round pick, caliber all the time, but I definitely see a big league arm here in an organization that does a really good job of developing guys that have, clearly an ability to throw different pitches and clearly the ability to spin the ball.
Yeah.
Another arm in an organization that does not do anything for their guys, but clearly something has worked for him. Samy Natera, 22nd round pick in 2022. Another guy that I don't know if we were able to figure out what the injury was that held him out this year, but I thought this was particularly fascinating, Jack, because like I think you were at a game with me when he threw, I believe, and that was one of the games where I think the gun was light, if I'm not mistaken. But I might be mixing him up with somebody else. But he is throwing gas out there.
Yeah.
And it made me think like, okay, well, lefty, 6'4" lefty in that organization that is sitting mid-90s. Why the hell was I not more tapped in on him? Even if he was hurt, like, why not? Well, because in 2023, he was not even close to that. In 2023, he was at a full workload, and he averaged 91.5 miles per hour with his fastball. Then he misses the entirety pretty much of this year. He doesn't come back until mid-August.
Yeah.
And yes, he was throwing in shorter spurts, but right away, sitting 95. And then every outing after that, as he built up pitch count wise, still sitting 94, 95. And then we saw his last outing of the regular season, and it was high A, but utterly disgusting. 62 pitches. He went 5 scoreless innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 7 Ks. And then in the AFL, he's continued to hold that velocity uptick. He went just 2 innings the first time out, sat 96. Then 2 innings out the next time, averaged more than 95. And then 3 innings out the next time, average 95. He is not allowed a run in the AFL. And he's one of 2 guys. He joins your boy, Jose Acuna, to throw 7 innings and not allow a run in the AFL so far. He's a 6'4" lefty. I was looking at the fastball characteristics. He gets good run and ride. So now that it's 95 with good run and ride, that's a plus pitch that I can overwhelm hitters. And he's got a pretty good slider off of that. He's always been a high fastball usage guy. But now that it's a plus fastball, this guy can be in the Angels bullpen next year, I think. And you know the way they operate, he probably will be.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, oh, he's good at a certain level, like time to get him to the show. They run into that a lot where they have later round picks or even like middle round picks that are performing a little bit better than you thought they could ever. And then all of a sudden they just get them up there. Like, it's not, hey, let's see how this, really blossoms at the AA level. He's going to go to Rocket City next year, right? Because he made 5 appearances in Tri-City this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he's going to go to AA. He's going to make 5 appearances, maybe all 5 are starts, and then he's going to be in the show as a reliever. And that's how the Angels are going to do this thing. So congratulations to you. Like, your first 7 innings of the Arizona Fall League have made you a Major League Baseball player, Samy Natera. How many M's are in Sammy's name?
2.
1.
Wait, what?
1 M.
Where really?
Yeah, apparently.
Samy Natera?
Or is that a baseball reference quirk?
I think that's a baseball reference mistake. Oh,
are
wait,
you
no,
sure?
It's not. Wow.
No, it's not. Samy, Samy Natera.
Wait. But New Mexico State put SAMMY.
Well,
in 2022.
those SIDs might not be on it. Like, a lot of SIDs kind of drop the ball.
Okay, okay, wait, hold on. So I'm on his Instagram right now. His Instagram is SAMY.Natera. Then his name on his Instagram is SAMMY Natera.
Pick one.
God. Which one is it? Is it, you can't have a nickname that's longer than your name.
The MLB research portal has SAMY. So
that must be his like birth name.
I'm going to go with SAMY, and the article has been updated.
Have you ever heard of somebody going by a longer nickname?
That's insane.
Well,
yeah, no, I don't think so.
I can't wait for this will be a big league thing at some point. It'll be a conversation at some point.
Yeah,
he's going to get to the show.
Right.
He's going to get to the show.
Wow.
17th round pick, by the way, too, from New Mexico State. I think this is going to be a good reliever for them. Good lefty for him. And I think that slot, like against lefties, man, like small sample this year, lefties were 2 for 29 against him with 14 punchies, including the AFL.
Wow.
So like this could be a lefty specialist kind of guy that just overwhelms. Hitters can go multiple innings if you don't want them to just get lefties. But I think that's it, right? That's it for our AFL check-in here. Nothing else really. We'll have some more check-ins. We'll break down Painter. I wanted to wait for one more. He's about to throw again. One more Painter outing, and then we'll have a decent amount of innings to go over things here. And then we'll check back in on some of the big names as well. Yeah. And the link is in the episode description for a little bit more detail on these AFL write-ups. Also a reminder that we did put out the top 100 update. If you missed that last episode, go check that out. And you can go read all the write-ups on justbaseball.com. Any final thoughts, Jack?
I don't think so. I love my short sleeve hoodie that I got from the AFL. So get your AFL merch.
Yeah. Baseball merch. Yeah. There's AFL merch. It's actually better this year than it was in the past.
Did you do it? I got that. And you said, I'm going to do it too.
I got a hat, and I got Ellie a shirt because my plan always is to get the weirdest shirt at every minor league affiliate I go to. So I was like, which is like the funniest logo I could find? I went with the Surprise Saguaros.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, a cactus with a hat on is probably the goofiest one I could find.
Yeah.
So did that. But no, it's good stuff this year, but also your Just Baseball stuff is good stuff too. Link is in the episode description if you want to get some call up or Just Baseball merch. As always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you all later this week.